fifth or sixth grader, when my Nepali teacher she encouraged me to write poems. Actually, maybe that's how it started long back. But see, in terms of, let's say, more sustained interest, maybe it was during my intermediate years in Tansen, when I started studying English literature. Uh, that's when I started reading novels outside of the course as well, and other things like I had access to literary journals like Madhupark, Garima on campus. So those kinds of things encouraged a lot, and I started writing uh, in Nepali back then, of course, not in English. Uh, and I continued in a way on and off, and I did my bachelor's in English again. So that was kind of another important thing for me to recall, to remember in terms of why I moved to English literature slowly and gradually. But still, when I was doing my bachelor's, I was still writing in Nepali. I was publishing short stories in magazines like, I think I got one of my stories published in Madhupark when I was an undergrad in Kathmandu. And I remember Miri and there were some other journals that published my short stories. Not many poems actually back then, but still I was writing poems and short stories and ghazals. I published a book of ghazals when I was a bachelor's student. And after I did my master's in English, things changed a little more, in fact, because I was studying mostly English literature, not Nepali. So it was pretty natural that I was influenced more by English writers. So I tried to, in a way, imitate them. I tried to get inspiration from some of them. For instance, I remember I wrote a poem inspired by Shelley's West Wind when I was, I guess, undergrad or something like that. So I mean, that continued, and after my master's in English, I moved more to English writing.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
So that was a long journey for sure.
it is. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then after you spent quite a bit of a time in Nepal and then you moved to USA.
Right.
So can you highlight your journey from Nepal to USA and how you continued with your writing in USA?
Yeah, definitely. So I started writing in English while I was still in Nepal around 2002, no, 1, 2000, 2001. That's when we established that organization that you mentioned right at the beginning. I mean, I was writing, but I hadn't published much, mostly because we didn't have those opportunities. We didn't have the forums, as you know. Uh, but I was writing in a way. I was learning. I was trying. So it was hard, as you mentioned. Learning English and writing in English, it's not easy. It was, of course, very hard back then, harder than it is now. So in 2000, uh, we established that organization and we started organizing monthly reading programs. And we used to read mostly poems during those monthly events. And in 2004, I had my first poetry collection out, and there were the poems mostly written for those readings. So in a way, we can say it was mostly because of those readings that the book was possible. And it was around 2003 or 4, I started writing short stories in English as well. Then when I started doing that, then I kind of stopped writing in Nepali because it was hard to practice that in two languages. And also because I was not reading that much of Nepali literature, which I regret these days, in fact. And we started publishing of Nepalese Clay in 2001, as you mentioned before. And I got some of my short stories and poems published in it as well. That continued until 2008. That's when I came to the United States as a student, as a PhD student. here, uh, once I came here, then I decided to focus more on actually writing. So those few years uh, between, let's say, 4, 5, and 8, 9, I was not able to practice writing much, even if I was involved in those daily, I mean, monthly readings and organizing events and those kinds of things. But here, once I came to the United States, I kind of decided I want to write. I want to learn more and I want to write. That was my aim. So even if I came here as not actually a creative writing student when I came here, I came for composition. So I spent a year in Texas doing that. Then I was looking for an opportunity where I could do creative writing. Then I moved to Missouri, University of Missouri, where I had the opportunity to take my first workshop in 2010, I guess, with Professor Morgan, who is an amazing professor, writer, and editor of Missouri Review. And things started changing pretty fast after that.
Yeah,
So my
thank you.
first short story was published here in the United States in, I believe, 2013.
Oh, okay, that's a great achievement, and it's a really long journey. So you also always had a kind of very well concentrated journey in writing from back to Nepal to USA. You never left it in between and continued with your studies. So yeah, that's very good to hear from you. So like as you mentioned earlier, you started as a poet, but lately you moved to fiction, right? So, uh, would you like to explain, tell us something about what inspired you into fiction and you kind of left poetry behind?
Yeah, in a way. But actually, I was writing a short story as well back then, even if I was writing more poetry.
Yeah,
Maybe that's because it's easier in the sense that, I mean, you can write a poem faster, right? It takes shorter amount of time than
right.
to write a short story.
Yeah,
So I was writing more poems because it felt easier, even if it's not easy to write a poem. I know, I mean, it's so hard these days. I can't even try. So that's how it's going for me. But I
yeah,
mean, it's easy to write a bad poem, right?
yeah,
So that's how it started. And also, as I mentioned before, those monthly readings where we had to read poems, not fiction. So that was another thing. Okay, I have to read a poem or two this Saturday, so I have to produce something. So that was another motivation, of course. But I was writing short stories as well. But it took, longer to finish a short story, and of course, even to publish. Uh, but I was writing, and also my poems, even if they are they are poems. They are mostly narrative poems. They tell stories in a way. So I realized that time, and I realize now. So that is, I have that desire to tell stories. That narrative mode always works. So whatever I write. So then I decided to kind of focus on stories. Maybe that's the way to go for me. And also, as I said before, writing good poems is really, really hard.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for your
Welcome.
biographical things that your educational journey and all the literary impetus and then the journey that you made on the field of literature from back to Nepal to USA. I really appreciate for that. Now we move on to our second segment, that is conversation on text.
Okay.
Uh, so let's start with the In-Betweeners, your
Yeah,
debut
sure.
collection of short story published in the USA by Braddock Avenue Books. What is the difference in themes and style of storytelling in the past and present? How can we read the stories of In-Betweeners in the light of changing global trend of storytelling?
Uh, so when you say story writing in the past and now, right, the difference. So you mean the stories back home that I used to write, or um,
Like, overall kind of the style and themes that the storytelling has, like like before it was like more about plot, concentrated
Mhm.
on plot, right, rise and fall of action. Now more
Okay.
about kind of a character psychological study.
Yeah, that's a great point. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you are going back to the history of the short story in a way, right?
Right. Right.
So when the short story started, it's an American product in a way, right? Even if America borrowed it from Germany and those places.
Right.
So it's in America that the short story flourished, right?
Yeah.
And we actually, in a way, learn from America. I mean, the outside world learn from it. So when it started, it was not a high art. It was a pop culture thing. So basically, those writers who were writing longer works, let's
Right.
say novels, so they wanted to take a break, or they wanted to earn some money as they were working on longer projects. So they used to write short stories and publish them. And actually, they were paid a very handsome amount of money for a short story.
Wow.
So it was a pop culture thing. What it means by this is basically like these days we talk of, let's say, genre fiction in a way, right?
Yeah.
Mostly for entertainment, without much focus on artistic aspects. So it was more an entertainment than an art form back then. That's how it started. And the thing you mentioned, plot and everything. So you can think of those short stories by, for instance, O. Henry, right?
Yeah.
The ending itself giving you that punch with that twist, for example, right? And with a lot of focus on plot itself. So that's so true. That's how they used to be back then. But now, say this whole idea of the short story, it has become a very different creature, in fact, right now. It's become an art form. So it's, again, in a lot of cases, we talk about this plotless stories, right? And there are some writers who completely reject this idea. Plot, of course, there are so many others who still think, of course, plot is important. But the idea is it has moved away from that rigid stance idea of plot-driven stories, of course, right? Then we are focusing more on the study of characters, mostly, of course, at least in so-called true literary stories. So we try to study people, going deeper into their uh, mind, especially with the start of the 20th century, of course, right? With modernism, in a way, we can say that. So now stories are more about understanding things differently than just giving drama. And with that comes that idea of the ending. That's one of the things that we talk about these days when we talk about stories. That is, instead of giving that nice closing, nice complete, completeness of a short story in the sense that we resolve everything. Now we are going for stories that are open to interpretations, give you some sense of direction. It's where it's going, but you are not closing everything, and you are giving a lot of space for your readers. Back then, it was not like that, of course, right? So now we also think so much about the idea of reading between the lines and the idea of giving your readers equal amount of space uh, from where they can, in a way, co-write the story with you. It's not just you writing the story. Now you are giving that space for your reader as well, who will co-travel and co-write your story with a lot of possibilities for interpretation. So, I mean, there are some of the things, I mean, these are some of the things we can say about where this whole idea of story writing is going, right, overall. But if we want to be more specific about, let's say, our stories, Nepali stories, right? Starting with, let's say, back then, uh, sorry, Mainali's stories too, right? Where we are now. So, I mean, that's maybe a different kind of conversation. So, what I mean by this is, I don't know if we are actually following this global trend, right? I don't know if our stories uh, are actually keeping up with the time and the demands of the time, the art form that we see now.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting issue because like still when read like we read stories like stories written in Nepali language, they are more like a traditional story rather than the story in between us. Whereas like there is Lakshman sir, who is like we don't know like what big thing happened in Lakshman sir's life. I mean something happened. He came to USA, right? But like as such, when you go to the story, like we do not expect a lot of emotional things involved, rather than it makes us to think. Like, kind of, I myself found in the place of Lakshman sir many times when I read the story. So it's kind of a different, but that trend is like not that much in Nepali as such. Those story writers who are writing in Nepali, it's behind, kind of. Do you think so?
Uh, I don't think I can speak with that authority about the Nepali short story overall right now,
Right.
because again, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to read a lot, but still, I'm reading some, and especially see these recent, not very recent, they've been publishing those short stories through that contest,
Right.
right? Bharakari short stories.
Yeah.
As I read that anthology, especially to know the trend, where we are going, what kind of stories we are writing in Nepal right now, and some others, of course, and fiction. I think you're right in terms of see how much we've been able to free ourselves from the traditional way of writing stories, right? So there is still so much focus on plot, probably. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy plot. I'm not against plot, but still the idea that see, instead of going deeper for the study of characters, instead of going for that art that we expect. So maybe we are focusing more on just sequence of events. And one thing I see, and I really don't enjoy that much, is there is this forced uh, notion of kind of introducing those social issues, whether those issues fit in your story or not. I have to talk about this. Or this is actually even in criticisms of Nepali short stories, we can see that, oh, reviews, for instance, right? Oh, this short story collection or this story or this novel does very well in terms of raising these social issues and those social issues. This is right. So that is so prominent. So what I'm saying is, again, I write about social issues. That's important, right? But uh, how do we treat them, right? Instead of say foregrounding socialist issues, maybe we should be focusing on something else, right? The art of writing the short story. So that forced uh, insertion of issues. Oh, I have to write about gender equality, for instance, right? Or uh, whatever, right? All those different issues. So I can see that happening a lot, and I feel like maybe that's something. Uh, Again, I say different people write differently. I'm not here to kind of teach anyone how to write stories, but that's one trend I can still see kind of continuing.
Yeah. For sure. So maybe over time, it will change, and then like maybe discussions like this, it's also valuable because to bring about the change, bring awareness on writers, and as such as you mentioned, writers are not someone who has the responsibility of changing the entire world. So it should be more of a free expression. Anyway, with this, I would like to move on to next question. So when I went through the stories of in-betweeners, I found some of the characters, like for example, Lakshman sir's penchant for being called Sir. Though
Mhm.
he's English, he's a teacher back in Nepal, and then he
Right.
understands in USA, it's calling Sir. I mean, even if he's already Sir, so he should not. What I assume is he's like maybe too much of asking for being called Sir. And another is Miss Sharma's kind of a
Halloween.
response to the Halloween, because she
Mhm.
knows there is a similar kind of culture back in Nepal, which is Gai Jatra.
Right.
Uh, do they sound like little overhyped? Is it kind of a coincidence, or how do you respond to it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. See, storytelling is kind of it's an interesting profession, right? So what we do is we pick one little thing and we see kind of make it big, right? Sound big. We become hyperbolic, right? We inflate, right? Uh, Things. So in the case of Lakshman sir, the idea is this guy is something we mentioned right at the beginning. There's no big drama, right? Nothing big happens. Of course, he's here. That in itself is a big thing, but when the story starts, there's not big inciting incident, for example, right? There is
Yeah.
little thing. That
Yeah.
little thing is someone calls him sir.
Right.
That triggers, right? That's the idea. And the point is here, like, why does it trigger him, right? Of course, they calling sir, I mean, maybe it's common, but in his case, it was not. He had just arrived, right? And that triggers that desire actually, right? He used to be sir. So what sir means for him is a very different thing, right? Of course, back home, teachers are sirs. So that idea is triggered and he cannot free himself of this very notion of being called sir. Okay, now sir, actually I used to be sir, right? So that's how it goes in his case. And when it comes to Mrs. Sharma's Halloween, uh, basically she's not happy that uh, her son has bought a house in America. So what it means for her is, oh, now they have bought a house here, means they are not going to return, right? So we'll be alone. We means the couple, right? Will
Right.
be alone back home. So that's the idea. And of course, there comes that see festival, right?
Right.
Halloween is there.
Following.
Then she's completely pissed off. Oh, what is this? What are they doing, right? Then see, how does she deal with this? How can she reconcile with this idea of this festival that our family members are okay with, right? Not just okay, the children, of course, right? They're growing up here. They enjoy that. They enjoy Halloween. So how can she reconcile with that idea? She cannot. She fights it for a long time, right? Oh, look, I told you not to buy a house here. Or see what kind of people you are living with. Now these people are putting all those scary things uh, in their front yards, right? And those trees, all those, see, I mean, scary eyes of whatever, right? And those
Right.
spider webs and everything. So basically, what is happening in this case is she's going all against this. Now she's fighting uh, her son and his family, and this new thing enters and that intensifies that fight. And
Yeah.
what can she do? She can do nothing, right? Ultimately, she has to still have to reconcile with it if she loves her children and grandchildren.
Right.
Then now she finds a way of reconciling, and that is basically now she can connect this festival to Gai Jatra in a way, right? Oh, I mean, they also, I mean, they put on those masks, they dress up in those weird ways, of course, right? Kind of for her. I'm not saying that they are similar, but the idea is for her, oh, maybe it's another form of that festival. So, oh, maybe I should be okay. Maybe I should be fine with the way these people are living. And maybe that's how I love, or I show my love to these, I mean, to my son and uh, daughter-in-law and grandchildren, right? So that's the way she reconciles. In terms of, again, that the idea of, say, making those things hyperbolic or whatever. So
Right.
the idea is, I mean, that's how we tell stories, right? We take little things and we go deeper, right? We try to study and uh, I mean, study those people. Why exactly is happening? Why is this happening for these people? Why is this person reacting the way see they are doing? And that's what I'm doing in those stories. And that's how basically we tell stories, right? I mean, if I just go for day-to-day common mundane thing and don't go deeper and kind of bring out those aspects, then maybe it won't be very interesting.
No, thank you so much, sir. Um,
Yeah, well,
that's a great insight into writing story.
oh,
Uh,
thank you.
and like, though my question might not sound that strong, but that brought into the very sense, the deeper thing that we dig out in a story, like present in a story to make it more interesting. And then, characters in your stories are predominantly Nepali living in the USA,
Yeah.
in Inuit. You could also write stories of whites, blacks, Hispanic, Filipinos, and others we encounter daily, every day here. Was it intentional or just a coincidence in Inuit?
It is both, right? And it's just natural, right? Especially because um, to write a story about somebody, you have to really know that person, right?
Yeah,
You have to know them very intimately. You cannot write about people. You cannot write about a character uh, who you cannot know. And it relates to the idea that to write a story about somebody, you really have to care about them, right? They may be really bad people, but you have to care, right? You have to be able to show empathy and everything, right? So when you are writing about people you really don't know, it's hard to do that, right?
right.
So for me, uh, living here in America just for a few years, let's say, and writing about, let's say, the local people, I mean, the white or African Americans or even other immigrants, let's say, right?
Yeah,
That would be hard because I don't know much about them. Now, maybe I know much more than when I was writing those stories, right? But it wouldn't be easy for me to write about those people. But still, again, I'm not saying that it's not possible at all. I would have to take a very different approach if I decided to write stories about them.
right.
Actually, I'm doing that right now in the stories I'm writing. I've started going a little beyond that, but it takes a very different approach. That's one thing. Another thing is I wanted to tell our stories, right?
Yeah, for
We have
sure.
our stories. So I
Yeah,
wanted to
for
tell
sure.
our stories. I wanted to tell my stories. In a way,
Yeah,
even if I'm writing about all those different characters, they are my stories, right?
yeah, that's true.
So we have stories, I wanted to tell them. So I didn't have to go beyond these people, my people in a way, let's say. So that's another reason why I focused only on these Nepali immigrants.
Yeah,
Uh, what else? Yeah, mostly that's what happened.
right.
Mhm.
So, for sure, there's also a question of representation and authenticity, right? So when we
Mhm.
write from in between spaces, there are people who argue that so diaspora, like people like us, we cannot really write about Nepal because we are like now divided, and
Mhm.
also so this question of there is a question of authenticity and representation.
Right,
So how this question is addressed in your stories, like how you have maintained this?
right. Yeah, these questions, very important questions, right? Long-standing questions, and the questions that will never be answered satisfactorily, right? For
Right,
everybody, let's say. Uh, the way I look at all these things is maybe like most other writers who write about immigrants or from that in-between space. Uh, I want to write stories to satisfy myself first because I have to tell stories, right? I have stories to tell and I want to tell them.
right,
So who says what, that comes. I'm not saying that's not important, but that comes only after other things that are
right,
more important to me. That is, oh, that's a story I want to tell. So why do we tell stories? Maybe it goes back to that idea, right? So in
right,
my case, it's not about representing, like many writers will say, right? I'm not representing Nepalese in America or whatever. But basically, the idea again, I cannot be black and white. I don't go that way. I'll need to address this uh, with more nuances. But for now, basically, I want to write stories because I have stories and I want to tell them. See, in that sense, story writing is an inquiry for me. Okay, we write
right,
stories to understand ourselves, right? So I write stories to understand my position in the world, in a way. It's an inquiry for me. So I'm writing about Lakshman sir or Mrs. Sharma, and those two characters you mentioned, or any others. That means I'm trying to understand them more. I'm trying to understand them more in a way in relation to my own positionality in the world, let's say, right?
right,
I'm also an immigrant here. Now, again, this whole idea of immigration, immigrant, that's very fluid. That's not static. I'm not just an immigrant. That's another discussion. But for now, I'm here as an outsider, for now, let's say, and I see people like me living, see, in different ways, right? Struggling in different ways, if I can use that word, struggle, which can be very tricky in this context. So I want to know more. I wanted to know more about Lakshman sir. Right? Why was he triggered? Just that, right? And that's another guy shopping for glasses. I think his name is Madan.
Yeah.
So again, nothing big happens, but the idea is this guy cannot just buy a pair of glasses. It's so hard for him, right? Why can he do that? This whole notion that okay, he goes to a shop and he's expecting those shopkeepers, those people to kind of force him to buy, right? He's expecting those people to tell him, "Oh, you look wonderful in those glasses. You should buy these glasses, right? Oh, you cannot, right? Uh, just go away without this glass. I mean that kind of stuff. So okay, that little thing then. So what kind of psyche is it, right? What happens when people move away from their own places, right?
Yeah.
So it's that effort to understand. Okay, so in terms of representation, it is a very tricky issue because uh, anybody who writes from this kind of space, in between space, there are going to be questions from the side of uh, the homeland, right? The
Right.
land you left behind.
Yeah.
And there will be questions from the host community, right? Society, America in this case as well. Back home, they may ask you, I mean, yeah, as you said, you've been living in America for 15 years. How can you write about these Nepali people, right? Again, in my case, maybe that's not a question because I'm writing about Nepalis who live here in America. Maybe
Right.
I have that, okay, authority in that sense, right? But
Right.
even in the case, I mean, many other writers have written about just about Nepalis. I, of course, have another sort of story collection that focuses on, I mean, the whole setting is
And
Nepal.
then I'd just like to remind you, like when we were doing Kavya, Kavya, the Sukhem,
Mhm.
so kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
right.
Right.
Right. So what I'm saying is, even in that case, uh, see, it's a big question, right? Who gets to write whose stories? This whole notion. But the question, I mean, you are living away from home for such a long time. How can you write? I don't think that actually uh, kind of addresses the real issue because, for example, you move away from your village, let's say, that little village in Palpa to Kathmandu. You spend 20 years in Kathmandu. Then are you still eligible to write stories from your village or not?
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
that question is always there. It's about how you approach and how you understand and how you interpret things for you. And one very important thing is everybody writes their own stories.
Right.
I write about something, it's my story, it's my interpretation of things, it's my interpretation of people, right? It's my interpretation of ideas. So stories should be read from that, or should be understood from that standpoint. If that happens, then it's easier to accept that notion that, oh yeah, I mean, anybody living anywhere can write about anyone or any place.
Right.
But there are, of course, issues, right? There are so many issues. This is not as simple as maybe the see explained here. There are nuances, there are complications, right? For example, maybe you remember the discussion around this American novel, American Dirt, right?
Yeah.
Uh, a couple of years ago, right? An American writing about Mexican immigrants, for example, right? So how does that work? I mean, those kinds of issues are always there, right? And they'll never be resolved. But the idea is, I mean, there are certain things that we need to pay attention to. We have to be aware of these complexities. Basically, that's the idea, right? I have to be aware of the complexities that are involved in writing about people or about places that are not like you or that you've left behind.
Right. Okay, so thank you so much for this. The final question I have, like, we are going, like, we have other things are coming on, so maybe we have to be like more concise. But I would like
Yes,
to
sir.
add one question
Mhm.
related to in-betweeners, which is very important, I guess. How does the in-between condition of your characters in in-betweeners parallel the uncertainty and multiplicity central to quantum mechanics?
Quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
I don't think I understand much about that.
Yeah. So, like lately, we have there is a discussion about quantum mechanics, like the idea of like vibration. I like how the physics is like has made a new stride and gone back to the our traditional Vedic culture where vibration like a kind of a continuous process. It's not kind of an in, but it's kind of a reviving process that comes from the idea of Om that creates a vibration. And this is how physics actually had a root. And in literature also, now they have started connecting to it. Like uh, it's a kind of a, there's not a single voice, like the way we have been talking about like multiplicity and uncertainty
Mhm.
principles. So
Mhm.
can we see that like characters in between us in that light?
That sounds really interesting. I wish I knew more about these basic things and everything, right?
Right.
It kind of reminds me of this butterfly effect in a way, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
connections, right?
Butterfly.
Everything, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, nothing happens in isolation,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly.
I'm writing stories. That doesn't mean, say, I'm creating an island. I'm not working in an island,
Right.
right? It's connected to so many other things. It's a product of so many things that are around me, right?
Right.
All these readings I've done, all these whatever, right? All these movies I've watched, to all these people I've met, right? All those things have contributed to the production of these stories, of course, right?
Yeah.
So I'm writing these stories. That also means, again, in the broader picture of uh, American writing, American literature, for example, right? So that could be another way of looking at that, or and other immigrant writers coming from other places around the world, right? So how do these depictions of immigrant experiences in my stories relate to those other depictions? That could be another way of looking at things, right?
Exactly.
What I'm saying is, of course, there are ways of looking at how these stories connect or relate to so many other things that are going around me. And of course, all of these things, whatever, right? By things, I mean anything, people to experiences, readings to whatever, right? All these things going around have contributed to the production of these stories. We can definitely say that, right? I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your
Yeah.
question, but
Let's move on to another your the essay collection, story and essay collection you edited. Stories are ways to develop relationship to places. This line comes from the introduction of the book you entitled South to South Writing South Asia in American South. How does this statement relate to the stories and essays collected in the book?
yeah, definitely. That anthology is a collection of, as you mentioned, eight short stories and eight narrative essays by writers of South Asian descent in the United States. So basically, the idea was when I started that anthology, or even before that, so I could see that there are writers writing here, living in Texas to Oklahoma to, of course, Arkansas and see all these southern states.
Right.
But there was not an anthology or anything like that, one specific space for all these to bring all these writers together in a way, right? Again, I don't mean that it has all these writers who live here and write, but the notion that, okay, South Asian writing in a way was happening in America for some time, for quite some time, in fact, and there were very good writers. There are really good writers, but there was not an anthology or something like this to bring all these writers together. So I decided maybe that would be a great idea to kind of connect these writers and see bring together. And what that also means is these writers are writing from their spaces. They are creating their own spaces through writing, of course, because writing is a way of asserting your presence, right? Your identity or your culture, whatever it is, right? Your ideas. So in that sense, you are creating your own space through writing. So now by bringing out this anthology, I wanted to kind of create a bigger space in a way, right? That is, oh, here's a space for these writers, or this is the space these writers from the South Asia are creating in the American South. So that was the notion. And I mean, this very idea of, see, writing to create space, that's pretty common idea by now, I guess, right? That
Yeah.
is, I write, first of all, to assert my presence, right? To show my presence. And that happens through understanding the geography, understanding the culture you are living in, understanding the people around you. When you do that, then you understand your say position better and you feel probably better, right? It's just like I said quickly, it's just like so you go to a conference somewhere, right? Big city, you live, you stay at a hotel, then you want to explore around you, right? Oh, so what's next to this hotel? Where will this road lead to? So maybe that evening when you check in, you just want to explore a little bit around you, right? Just to locate yourself more
Right.
comfortably,
Right.
right? It's that kind of thing that happens through writing as well.
Yeah. So the final question on this section is I just want to talk a little bit about the let's talk about Kavya,
Mhm.
representative Nepali poetry in English. Uh, it showcases the history of Nepali poetry to the world. How do you see the development of Nepali literature written in English in relation to Kavya?
Yeah, that's a great question. But even before that, I think I should thank you for uh, see being very important uh, voice in a way. I mean, very important person, one of the important people to start the whole process, the whole work, and being one of the co-editors there. Right, you deserve a lot of credit for
Thank you
that
so much.
anthology. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy about this anthology for a couple of reasons. Uh, Number one is it brings out these poems from uh, the 1950s, from Devkota to, in a way, present, not now actually, in these couple of years. A lot of things have happened, and I've seen some new writers, really good writers, good poets publishing in America itself, in fact. That's really cool stuff. So it brings out all those poets together in one anthology. So that's really good. I mean, there were a couple of anthologies, I guess, published before this as well, but of course not the way it works, right?
Yeah.
So that's one very important thing that this anthology does. And another very important thing about this anthology, I guess, is see, when we talk about Nepali writing in English, we usually talk about fiction, right? So look at any article, any journalist writing about this issue. Most probably they'll be focusing on fiction, right? Novels, short stories. And I believe that is very unfair. So even if I write mostly short stories now and mostly fiction, let's say, I believe that Nepali writing in English is richer in the field of poetry. Nepali poetry is much richer than Nepali fiction in English. And very few people know this. So we really needed to bring this out, this anthology. And yeah, I mean, those people who read it, who've gone through this, have actually uh, pointed out this aspect, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So it
Yeah.
was a great project. And then we were about to make it as representative as possible, but we know there are various shortcomings, and then in coming days we can
Yeah, I mean, there are always those opportunities,
right.
right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
we could not include certain poets that we were thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Even then,
Yeah.
and in some cases, we didn't actually know a couple of poets we were writing, right? Because we didn't know everything. And as I said, after we published that anthology, actually some other writers, new writers, have published really good poems. And it's not just about, again, America or Nepal, right? In the anthology, we have poets, I guess, from four different countries, five in a way we can say, right? India, Nepal,
Right.
uh, Canada, UK, uh, but not from Australia. And I can see there are some writers writing from Australia as well, and some other countries, right? So, I mean, yeah, of course, that's more we can do, and maybe we can bring out another edition of the anthology
Yeah.
very soon. That would be a cool project too.
Sure.
Yeah,
So thank you so much, sir, for all these ideas.
yeah, welcome.
Uh, our next section is intellectual exchange on writing. I have few questions under this section. Being a diaspora Nepali author, what are the challenges you have faced writing from in between spaces and being published in the USA?
Okay, two things here, right? Writing from those two, I mean, from that in between space, uh, can be tricky sometimes, right? Especially in terms of expectations. As I said, I mean, before, that is, even if I write because I have to tell stories, I cannot be completely oblivious of, let's say, my readers, for example, right? Or the people I'm writing about. So meeting those expectations, right? I'm writing about this character or these people or this particular person from Nepal. So will I be able to write about this person fairly, right? With
Yeah.
justice and everything. There are ethical issues involved. And there are so many things. So being away from that place and then uh, again, see, kind of having those questions, right? Somewhere back there. Oh, people will be asking me these questions, right? Even if you have your own answers, you'll have to think about those questions,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing in terms of back home. And here, of course, um, yeah, that's, I mean, one very tricky issue is when you are writing as an immigrant in a way. Now, there are certain expectations from the mainstream literary world. You are supposed to write like this, right? And I mean, there are some tropes that you're supposed to follow, right? For
Yeah.
example, I mean, I'm editing another anthology coming out in 26, and there's an essay by Sonia Kamal, Pakistani American writer. If I don't know if you know her, and she talks about this whole idea of see, oh, you have these South Asian characters. Now in your book, they are eating too much pizza instead of
Mm.
biryani, right? I mean that notion. I mean it's nothing new, but I mean that's something going on. Still going on, let's say, right?
Yeah.
It's an old thing, but still going on. So in terms of those expectations, how do I work with that? Do I comply, right? Or do I revolt? So how do I carve out my space, right?
Right.
Uh, when it comes to those expectations. So that's always there, of course, right? So, but at the same time, it's an opportunity as well because we have stories, right? We
Totally.
have experienced life
Yeah.
differently, let's say, and we have stories to tell, and that's a good thing. In terms of publishing, it's not easy. Again, that's this whole notion, um, this gatekeeping thing that goes into this, right? You have to write like this to get published in this journal, for example, right? You have to follow these traditions, these uh, craft techniques. Mostly that means following these Western techniques, the idea that craft means these Western Eurocentric ideas, right? So you write something that follows a different craft technique that comes from your homeland, probably, right, from outside, and then maybe that won't be entertained that much here. And that there are voices against that idea, but still goes that way, right? And another very important thing, and we keep hearing this, so many writers have written, and even in this anthology I'm editing, there are a couple of writers kind of raising that issue that is, oh, we already have this South Asian writer for this issue. We already have one writer from South Asia, so we cannot accommodate any more writer, right?
Yeah.
So we are completely cut off from that thing. And in our particular case, it can be even more complicated because, okay, here's a journal. They'll publish 5 short stories in this particular issue. They already have one from South Asia. Okay. And who do you think, or where do you think that person will be in the first place? From India, from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or Nepal and Bhutan, for example, right? What I'm saying is we are in a way that disadvantaged position from that perspective as well. But that's the way it is, right? And we have to deal with that. You write your stories, you write your good stories, and keep pushing, and you should be good. We should be good.
There's a lot of struggle involved in it and a lot of
Yeah, I
patience in
mean,
it.
there's struggle in every field, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Right. Of course. Thank
mhm.
you so much for this answer. Uh, so is I would like to ask a different kind of question, a little different. Is this program is brought to you, brought out by, we are connected to International Nepali Literary Society, INLS. So as Nepali diaspora writers community grow, do you think we need to redefine the traditional understanding of what constitutes a Nepali literature? How should Nepali literature be defined? And how do you see the role of INLS in accommodating English Nepali writing into the broad spectrum of Nepali literature?
Yeah, with regard to your first question, absolutely. That is, uh, see, Nepali literature doesn't mean just the literature written in the Nepali language, right? We have to correct that notion right from the beginning, okay? And that's something maybe I've been raising, the issue that I've been raising with some of the friends at least here, okay? Some of the friends from this organization as well, you mentioned, okay? Usually it feels like when these writers or friends working with this organization, or even others, let's say, the notion that Nepali literature is only is the literature written only in Nepali. That's a wrong notion. Okay, to start with, Nepali is just one of the 123 languages in Nepal. Okay, it's the language of the state, right? It's
Yeah,
the major language, right? Not just
yeah,
major, but most important. Uh, Again, just saying most important, that's not enough probably. But still, what I'm saying is there are 122 other languages in Nepal.
right.
And literature is written in so many other languages, and wonderful literature is written in all, I mean, in so many different languages like Maithili, right? Like
Yeah,
Bhojpuri, like, of course, Nepal Bhasa, to others as well, right? So they are also part of uh, Nepali literature. So how do we uh, see kind of accommodate that notion is very important. And of course, English is another, right?
yeah,
So there are people writing in English living in Nepal. And of course, we are living here and writing in English in England. Okay, there are friends who are writing in Nepali, writing wonderful, wonderful Nepali poems, especially, and fiction. But there are writers writing in English, right? So
yeah,
that's also part of Nepali literature. So it's very important that we uh, accommodate that idea when we are talking about promoting Nepali literature, right? When we are talking about disseminating Nepali literature, we should not just confine to the literature written in the Nepali language. But of course, when you are, if your mission is to disseminate the Nepali language, promote the Nepali language, that's a different thing, right? That's the difference between the Nepali language and Nepali literature, right?
for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. So, and towards the end of this section, now I would like to ask you some more personal kind of question about your writing, about your reading habit, and any suggestion to the writers, new writers, emerging writers who wants to get published in USA, maybe write from in between spaces, diaspora readers and authors like us. Uh,
Mhm.
why do we write? That's basically basic question. What makes a successful writer, and what is the best satisfaction of writing for you?
Oh, many questions, sir. So you started with why do you write, right?
Right.
I think I've answered that question in a way before this as well. That is, uh, I feel like I can understand myself better, or I have that urge to understand others, right, or my surrounding, and that see happens. I mean, through stories. Basically, when I write, I feel like I'm understanding myself better, right? I'm understanding people better, the relationships better, and I enjoy doing that. Okay,
Right.
and I feel like I have stories to tell when I can tell the stories that see give me satisfaction, of course.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, maybe that's why I write. Yeah, I mean, just maybe sometimes people ask, I mean, you don't have any purpose, goal to change the society, this and that, right? Represent this thing or that. I don't think that's the main thing. Maybe that happens. People read my stories and they feel moved, right? They feel changed, right? Their perspectives change. That's wonderful. And that's actually what I expect at the end. I expect people to feel, to change at the end. But before that, there are other things that I want my stories uh, to do. Okay.
Yeah.
And your second question was writing habit, right?
Yeah. A successful
Okay.
writer. What makes a person?
What makes a successful writer? I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question because success, that's tricky term, right? What do you call success?
Right.
So I don't know if we should be uh, running after that, right? I mean, um, so maybe try to write a beautiful story, try to write a beautiful poem, an essay, a beautiful essay, right? And maybe measure your success through that. Then let's say maybe how many times you feature on a particular television or social media or whatever, right? Or how many awards you get, because that's very tricky. So the way I would look at it is, uh, if you want, I mean that's my way. If I can write something that really satisfies me, I feel successful for the moment at least, right? And for that, and of course, what do I do? What would I uh, suggest, right? What recommendations I would make? Maybe, of course, reading is important, right? Everybody says that. To write good stuff, you need to read good stuff, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And uh, a habit of writing regularly, that helps because practice is very important. A lot of times we forget the idea that somebody performs really well in the field, let's say playing soccer or whatever. So we just see the match, the game, and we see, oh yeah, that person plays so well, right? We don't see all those practices that go into that, right? Hours and hours of drilling the ball, right? So that applies to writing as well. We really think about that, right? Doing
Right.
that drill every day, uh, right? All the time, writing, practicing, and throwing away stuff. In a lot of cases, especially as a new writer, I mean, I had that experience. You write something and you feel so attached to it, and you don't feel like throwing it away. You don't want to trash your writing, right? Because you've spent so much time, energy on that, and you love it. So you feel like you write something means it has to be good, right? If you cannot write something good, then maybe you should not write. That notion does not work. We should be prepared to write really bad stuff. Of course, we can throw it away, right? That's what we do. That's what writers do. Good writers do all the time, of course, right? So yeah, practicing, reading, and going for that really good stuff. Uh, and that maybe that's the way we can talk about success, not I don't know, as I said, maybe prizes and other things.
Okay.
And your
So
last question was,
yeah, best satisfaction of writing. So you kind of brought about that
yeah.
answer already. Yeah. So is writing, is success in writing is an outcome of practice or inspiration? Kind of you answer, but still, like, how do you
Yeah.
like evaluate this?
Yeah. Again, this is also very important question, and the question that's being asked, right,
Many times.
that is being asked, see, all the time. So yeah, inspiration in the past, we used to talk about inspiration a lot. You have to be inspired. Only inspired people can write, right? But now we know through our practices, and of course, there's research and everything that shows that, yeah, inspiration is maybe something, but more important is perseverance, right? How much effort you can put on something, right? How much prepared are you to keep going, right?
Right.
And revising your work.
Right.
And that also means, of course, reading, understanding the craft, let's say, of a short story or a poem, right? That's also part of writing, right? A lot of times we forget that idea. Reading is also part of writing for writers, right? Reading as a writer, that's always there. So yeah.
So finally, uh, would you like to share some of your personal like reading writing habit, and would you like to suggest any good books to read for the readers?
Oh, yeah, good books.
Yes.
There are so many. I always feel so bad about not being able to read all those good books. Okay. So, uh, but again, see, I cannot say this is a must, right? I mean, some writers, some people say, let's say, you must read this book. I don't think there's a book that must be read because different books work differently, right?
Right.
And different people have different interests. So it depends. So again, if you are a fiction writer, look at the fiction that's being written right now, right? And those successful novels, short stories, how is it going, right? What craft they are practicing. That's important, of course, right? So knowing the trend is so important, of course. It's not that you have to follow or you have to write exactly the way others are writing, but knowing is important, right? So I don't think I can say read this book or that book, but again, if you are a poet, yes, read what's being published now, right? And especially in America, of course, we have those wonderful, wonderful magazine journals, right? So I mean that give you the picture of the latest writing, right? More than books, let's say. So that really, really helps. So anything that relates to your interest, the genre you are practicing, just go for that and do the reading, right? Anything will be good. Any reading is good reading, right?
Right.
Better reading, no reading.
Right.
And in terms of my habit, I try to practice daily writing. Just uh, to share, I mean, my daily routine is I get up at 5, I grab my coffee, I come to this desk and spend at least a couple of hours. Sometimes good thing happens, sometimes nothing happens. That's okay, right? Sometimes I write new things, sometimes I just revise. Most these days, these couple, 2 years actually, past 2 years, I'm just revising. I'm not writing much of a new thing because I'm working on a long novel and some sort of stories. I'm revising mostly, but that's part of my work. Again, revising is also writing, right? In fact, revising takes much more time than drafting. So, okay, I spend at least a couple of hours here at my desk. But when I have to teach, then I leave a little early. Maybe I can spend just 1 hour or 1.5 hours. But the days on the days I don't teach, then I spend more time here writing, revising, reading. Reading mostly happens in the evening. Uh, yeah, that's how I work. In fact, I try to write everything. I mean, every day, at
Everything.
least
That's important.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I do.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. So we are on the final round of our conversation today. It's a quick response segment,
Okay.
a rapid fire round. I will be expecting your answers, yes and no, or maybe you have to point out some answers like
Okay.
question answer kind of thing. Are you
Sure.
ready for that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's go. Khem Aryal's stories in the In-Betweeners deliberately exaggerate Nepali immigrants' experiences.
I don't think so.
Okay. Immigrant Nepali writers lose authenticity to write about Nepal.
No,
All creative writers fairly represent their society in their writings.
I can't answer this question
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
because depends on, see, uh, how you define fairly and who is reading your work, right?
But
So some people may say it's fair, others may say it's not, right? So yeah,
International Nepali Literary Society (INLS) has strongly supported Nepali English writers.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Uh,
hopefully they'll do very soon.
yeah, so I guess questions like this might create a
Uh,
situation when we will be
yeah,
doing that,
that'd be wonderful.
right? There are more illuminators in the world than diminishers.
Probably yes. Let's be positive.
Let's be positive. Okay. All right. Only the books that romanticize or exaggerate Eastern values, traditions, and customs can win international prizes.
I don't think so.
Okay. A writer you would love to have tea with.
How right now, I've started reading Arundhati Roy's memoir.
Right.
Yeah, I think of hers right now. Yeah, that would be
Okay,
wonderful.
good.
Hear from
Uh,
her.
if a reader calls your work too Nepali or not Nepali enough, your one-line response would be,
Maybe they are right because they're
right.
coming from both sides. It's
Okay.
for their interpretation.
What is the best compliment you have received from your reader?
Um, they can really relate with my characters. So a lot of people have said that. Oh, I just a couple of days ago, one reader said, "Oh, I could see my father in Last Sir." So that kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah, Lakshman sir is like even with me, like I work in Subway restaurant in the beginning, and then we had whole Nepali masters. Like I was in English, somebody was in math, somebody was in sociology. So we
Mhm.
had masters, Subway, sandwich artist. Everybody
Mhm.
sir and Mrs. So we had a very nice talk about it.
Oh,
We
okay,
could
interesting.
make intellectual sandwiches in San Francisco City. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
nice.
That's cool.
Uh, when you are homesick, what helps you best? Momos, music, or manuscript?
Oh, momos are always good, of course,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
But as a writer, yeah, maybe if I feel that way, then maybe I start writing something.
right. So thank you so much for your time today, sir. Do you have anything to say at the end?
Uh, yeah, thank you so much. It was wonderful for inviting me and see, letting me talk to talk about, see, giving me the opportunity to talk about these different ideas. Thank you so much, and thank you also to whoever is watching us live.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are doing wonderful work. Keep doing
Thank
it,
you. So
and
with this, we want to end our section today. I want to disconnect from the live session. We will be bringing. I will be coming with another guest after 2 months. Thank you for watching us today, and have a wonderful day. I want to disconnect the live stream.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Uh, so unfortunately, how was it, sir, today?
Um, I enjoyed. How about you?
Good. एक दुईवटा अनफर्चुनेट कुरा भयो सर आइएम सो मच स्याड फर द्याट के भयो भने त्यो मान्छेले मलाई कोअर्डिनेट राम्रो गरेन त्यो उमेश भन्ने मान्छे छन् डिसी नेपालमा होइन
Uh,
अनि उनले चाहिँ एकै ठाउँ टाइममा दुईजनाको प्रोग्रामलाई आई मिन मेरो लाइक 15 दिन अगाडि टाइम दिए उनीहरूले नि फ्लायर बनाइदिने हो
uh,
सो लाइभ जाँदाखेरि के भएछ भने लाइभ चाहिँ डिसी नेपालमा लाइभ गएन अनि
uh,
गएन छ मैले एकछिनमा थाहा पाएँ बोल्न थालेपछि अनि
eh,
मैले रेकर्ड गरेर थिएँ त्यसपछि एटलिस्ट हामीसँग रेकर्डिङ त छ
uh,
अनि मैले के गरेँ भने मैले पर्सनल पेजबाट टाइम लाइनबाट लाइभ गरेँ
uh,
त्यसपछि अरू सरहरूले पनि सेयर गर्नुभएको छ त्यहाँ सरले देख्नुहुन्छ
okay,
सो लाइक त्यो त जान त गयो होइन तर डिसी नेपाल एसएसबाट लाइभ हुन सकेन किनभने उसले पनि त्यही समयमा प्रोग्राम थालेछ
okay.
या आइएम सो सरी फर द्याट इट्स काइन्ड अफ अनफर्चुनेट
That's okay. About technical thing, right? What can we do?
या मलाई एकदमै धोका भयो यो कुरामा किनभने त्यो गरिदिनु हुने थिएन नि जस्तो के हुँदो रहेछ भने दुईवटा लाइभ एकैचोटि हुँदो रहेछ एउटै समयमा
त्यस्तो है?
गएन फर सम रिजन गएन मैले ट्राई
Mm.
गरेर फेरि बोलिराखेको छ फेरि यता कन्भर्सेसनमा एटेन्सन नदिँदा पनि राम्रो देख्दैन
Right, right.
मान्छेहरूले देखिरहेछन् होइन
Uh,
अनि कस्तो अनफर्चुनेट भयो आइएम एपोलोजी फर द्याट
that's okay. कुरा त गऱ्यौँ नि त हामीले.
कुरा गऱ्यौँ र रेकर्डिङ छ होइन
त्यही त. That's good. Good.
सो
So, what do you think
रेकर्ड
overall? Okay, what?